Billionaire pretends to sleep to test Black Maid's kid. And freezes seeing what she does. The chandeliers sparkled in the grand estate, but behind the polished marble floors and golden staircases, loneliness lingered like dust in the corners. Richard Vaughn, one of the wealthiest men in America, was a figure of power, control, and calculation. To his employees, he was untouchable. To the media, he was ruthless. And to his own family, well, he didn't have one anymore. His wife had left him years ago, and his grown children wanted nothing to do with him. Now in his 60s, Richard lived in his mansion surrounded by staff who worked in silence. They polished, cooked, and cleaned, but never dared look him in the eye unless spoken to. All except one. Her name was Lorraine, a black maid in her late 30s who had been working in the house for 3 years. She was respectful but not intimidated, diligent yet kind. And unlike the others, she came with a quiet companion, her 10-year-old daughter, Naomi. Naomi wasn't supposed to be in the house, children were forbidden, but Richard had made an exception after Lorraine begged him. Her husband had died in an accident years ago, leaving her alone, and with no one to watch Naomi, she had no choice. Richard allowed it, though he often pretended Naomi didn't exist. But secretly, he noticed her. The way she tiptoed around the hallways, clutching her little notebook. The way she stayed quiet at the dinner table when her mother worked late, scribbling drawings in the corner. And most of all, the way she sometimes looked at the grand piano in the parlor as though it were alive, but never dared touch it. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Richard reclined in his armchair by the fire. Lorraine was cleaning the shelves nearby, and Naomi sat quietly with her notebook. Richard sipped his whiskey and watched them, an idea forming in his sharp, restless mind. He was a man who didn't trust words, only actions. Everyone told him what he wanted to hear because of his money. But what about this little girl? She didn't know him. She wasn't afraid of him in the same way the others were. What would she do when she thought no one was watching? That night, Richard decided to test her. The next evening, after dinner, he feigned exhaustion and slumped back into the armchair, letting his eyes close. Lorraine tucked a blanket over him, whispering to Naomi to keep quiet while Mr. Vaughn slept. Minutes passed. The house was still. Then Richard heard it. A soft shuffle of feet. The creak of the piano bench. The hesitant press of a single key. His heart nearly skipped a beat. Naomi had touched the piano. He peeked through the tiniest slit of his eyelids. There she was, her small frame perched on the bench, her fingers hovering uncertainly above the keys. She glanced nervously at her mother, who had stepped into the kitchen for a moment. And then, slowly, she began to play. Not banging, not fumbling, playing. Melody poured from her hands, fragile at first, then stronger, fuller. Richard recognized it instantly, Chopin. A piece only the truly gifted could master at her age. His throat tightened. He had spent millions sponsoring young musicians through foundations, hiring the world's best pianists for private concerts. Yet none of them had played with this raw, unfiltered beauty. Naomi wasn't reading sheet music. She wasn't even old enough to have formal training like this. She was playing from memory, from instinct, from soul. Richard's breath caught when she shifted seamlessly into Beethoven, then into a jazz improvisation that no child should have been capable of inventing on the spot. She wasn't just skilled, she was extraordinary. And then, he froze. Because Naomi began to sing. Her voice was soft, almost whispering, but it carried pain far too old for a child. She sang about missing her father, about her mother's long hours, about wishing for a home that wasn't borrowed from someone else's wealth. Richard felt his chest ache. For the first time in decades, the billionaire who had everything felt powerless. He closed his eyes fully now, pretending to stay asleep. But his mind was racing. Why had Lorraine never told him? Did she know the kind of gift her daughter had? Did she understand that this child wasn't just talented, she was once-in-a-generation brilliant? The next morning, Richard called Lorraine into his study. Naomi stood nervously beside her. He leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. Your daughter. Who taught her to play like that? Lorraine's eyes widened. You were awake. Answer me. Tears welled in Lorraine's eyes. No one, sir. We can't afford lessons. She listens. To the radio, to the church pianist, she just remembers. Richard's jaw tightened. He had been tested his entire life, by rivals, by markets, by the world itself. But nothing had shaken him like this little girl's midnight concert. Finally, he spoke. "Lorraine, pack her things. Both of you." Fear flashed across Lorraine's face. "Sir, please, don't fire us. I'll do better." "She won't touch the piano again, I swear." Richard raised his hand. "Stop. You misunderstand me. You're not leaving this house. You're moving in properly. Full quarters. No more hiding your daughter in the staff wing. From this day forward, Naomi will have the best teachers money can buy. She is not just your daughter anymore. She is my responsibility." Lorraine gasped. Naomi blinked in disbelief, and Richard Vaughn, the ruthless billionaire who had built his empire on stone-cold decisions, felt something crack inside him, something he thought had died years ago. Hope. Because he had just witnessed the future, not in boardrooms or stock markets, but in the hands of a black maid's little girl, whose music could heal wounds money never could. And he knew, deep down, the world would soon know her name.